I'm going to go ahead and get started here. And so I'm going to screen share a couple of things. So number one, you can all see my screen? All right. When I think about SC2 leadership and just SC2 itself, SC2 in a lot of ways for me, what I see happen for people is that it really is like the key to unlocking their potential, both their potential personally and professionally. So I want to review with you what the agenda is today. I've got some opening comments. You're going to hear a message from Sam Paulsner, who was the #5 representative in the country 2 summers ago, and last summer he was he ran the #1 office in the country, and so he really has expertise at teaching people how to sell out of Cutco. He sold $70,000 basically his first summer selling Cutco. Then I'm going to walk you through how to push, but you've already heard some of the things that I'm going to talk about, right? So there's a saying that if you want a certain result, you want to follow people that have gotten that same result, right? So that's one of the reasons I had Casey speak a little bit longer, because it's not often that you get someone who's sold 20,000 plus, live with you. I'm going to walk you through how to push. I'm going to talk to you about the fuel to your business, and Casey alluded to that a little bit. And then we're going to have Bert Wick speak. Bert, he's the Fear and Show coordinator for the North Star division in Minnesota, and his responsibility is to teach people who are the best at selling Cutco. It's called Cutco Sales Professionals. So he's a really neat guy. This is you right here in the center, right? This red stick figure, we'll call it. You all have people that are watching you all of the time. I mean, it's really interesting. Again, I'm the dad of 2. We have a 10 and 12-year-old, and I run a business. I run a $20-30 million business, and people think that I'm the leader, right? And so, that is accurate in terms of like the title that I have, but really I watch a lot of other people and I watch them lead. Okay, and that's something that I want to just let you know, that you are all leaders, and there are many people watching you. This could be younger siblings. It could be mom and dad, right? There's many times where my son, and we have 2 sons, so my son will impress the crap out of me. And I'm like, wow, that's just absolutely amazing. And it's inspiring at the same time. I was commenting on one of our CSPs. He posted a status that he had some big accomplishment, and his name's Lucky. And I remember hearing the story of Lucky during the SC2 push. This is back when you would go physically to someone's house to sell Cutco. He didn't have a car. He would walk even on the highway to get to his appointment. Like, I remember hearing that story, and he sold 12,500 for the push, like walking in the middle of July in Chicago in dress clothes. He would show up sweaty and do demos. And I was like, I remember hearing that story, right? I could see Brady's face. I could see 4 of you on the screen right now. It's just like my mouth was open, right? There's always people watching you. So it's just important to kind of consider, like, hey, what if I really took my leadership seriously? And that's what I want you to do. I want you to consider that SC2 is an opportunity for you to really show your strengths, but most importantly, show your strengths to yourself. So I want you to jot down a couple things here. So each of us has, let's see if I can play this. Each of us has unique strengths and capabilities and gifts that we bring, right? And so, there's different attitudes, maybe philosophies and approaches or techniques. I want you to take a minute just to describe in detail some of your superpowers. Right? What are your strengths? So I'm going to give you some ideas, right? For some of you, perhaps it is like you've got a crazy work ethic, right? And that's great if you do. And if you don't, that's okay. Some of you, you're great at delivering, deadlines, right? Some of you, you're just great with people. Some of you, you're compassionate, you're empathetic. You're very clear with your communication. Others of you, you just find yourself naturally in a leadership role because you walk the talk, right? Some of you are charismatic. Some of you have just a belief of like, hey, I'm going to tell you a little personal story. Like my parents moved here from Bolivia, which is the poorest country in South America. And I saw my dad work 6 to 7 days a week his entire life. And that was really inspiring to me. And I was like, I owe it to him, right? I owe it to my mom also, who raised 3 kids, that, I've got to bust my ass. Like that's, so, those are different philosophies and things that you may think about. Or is there something that, you're great at building rapport, right? Or maybe you're really courageous. So I want you to really remember, what are your strengths? Okay, so when I think about, why should people push, I want you to know the why behind things. I think it's really important that you always know why you're doing what you're doing. The how is actually the easy part. The why is what gets you through things. What I can tell you is in the push and in life, you're going to experience adversity, and that adversity is going to make you question whether it's worth it. Always. And so what are the benefits of pushing? Number one, it's personal growth. I think it's just, it's really important to consider that you will only grow when you're challenged. You will only grow when you're challenged. We oftentimes grow the most when there's problems for us to overcome. I just read the book Sapiens. I just finished the book Sapiens. And, in that they talk about how, people moving up to the northern part of Europe, right, where it was colder, right? So you have to get kind of innovative when the weather's super cold, because you can't just like sleep on a rock, right? You've got to figure out a way to, how do we start protecting ourselves? And then they started thinking about, how do we, as a species, like, how do you grow crops? How are you intentional about growing specific crops that have nutritional value? It's important to recognize that it's actually in our DNA. It is in our DNA as a species to really push and challenge ourselves. Obviously there's financial success, right? Some of you, again, are going to make more in those 2 weeks than you've ever made in any summer. Some of you are going to make more in those 2 weeks than you've ever made in your life. Right now, money's not going to make you happy, but it's probably not going to make you sad either, right? It's one of those things where, again, if you don't like money, you can always donate it, right? That's the great thing about money, right? You can invest it and then donate all of it, right? At a young age, the advantage that you have is that most of you are at a very young age. I read somewhere recently, I think Warren Buffett's worth like $106 billion. And my understanding is that he was worth like 4 billion at age 65, I think. So the majority of his wealth happened after he was 65. He's 90 now. Why? It's the power of compound interest, right? It's the power of compound interest. I shared with some of you recently where if I gave you 1 penny today, and then I doubled it every day for a month, and I gave you 2 pennies tomorrow, and then 4 pennies the next day, and then 8 pennies the next day, and then 16 pennies the next day, and then 32 pennies, right? You're not going to it's not going to feel like you have a lot after a week. But if we keep adding, if we keep doubling it, by the end of the month, you've got $5,300,000, something like that. So if we take one of those days away, you have half of that. If we take 2 of those days away, you have 1/4 of what we ended at. Now, if you imagine that those are years instead of a month, days, that's what happens. And so again, I've seen people at the end of a push invest their money. So there's a lot of things you can do. You can invest it in your education, right? You can start a business with that. Okay. You can set yourself up for advancement. So I don't think Casey, when she was pushing that first summer, was thinking, hey, you know what? I think I'm going to run an office for this company for 2 years. But I think what she was thinking was, I might as well go for it and see where it lands. And that's where, see where I landed. That's where I noticed her. That's where people get noticed. And by the way, it's not so much in your sales result that I notice you. I notice you in your effort. Look, sometimes things happen, right? You've all seen situations and circumstances of people that overcame tremendous adversity, not necessarily to win, but they still impressed the crap out of you, right? And so I just think it's really important to recognize that, you know, the pushing you'll reveal to many people who maybe can promote you or not, right? And I think of Lindsay Paul now. Lindsay did not have the push that she wanted, but she pushed through it, which made her so much more, it demonstrated her character to me. And I was like, yeah, we definitely want, after her push, I was like, yeah, we should sit down. I want to talk to you about running an office next year. Because she didn't quit. See, that's the difference. Oftentimes people quit before they finish. Okay. It's going to help your resume, right? If you think about it, like what is helping you've all have a better resume right now after selling Cutco because you can point to specifics. Look, I used to tell people at my lifeguarding job, like I'm a very hard worker, and people would kind of look at me like, you know, you don't say, right? Kind of like, what is it? Condescending Wonka, you know, that meme, right? You know, like, right. So it's one of those things where it is really hard when you're young to have a good resume. Why? Because nobody's going to give you experience, right? And we're going to give you the opportunity to really create a great resume. I earned 4 promotions during the summer, you know, and during a 2-week time frame, I sold $12,000 of Cutco or $15,000 of Cutco. That impresses the heck out of people. I just need you to know that. How many of you are impressed if I told you that you would sell $15,000 during the push? How many of you are impressed with yourself? Like, wow, that would impress me, Mike. Yeah, because it sounds darn near impossible. And you know what? It feels impossible until you do it. Right, Casey? You didn't think you were going to sell 20,000. It was like, hey, why not go for it? And she just has so much more to talk about. When someone asks her, hey, tell me about a challenging experience you had in your life, or tell me about a goal you set, right? I mean, those are really tangible questions that you're going to be asked in interviews. Why push? Because you're going to do something you think you can't. And I just think that's cool. I think that demonstrates your courage. Doing something that you think that you can't do, and even better yet, that other people think you can't do. I love when someone tells me, I don't think you can do that. It's a great feeling. You know, it is I remember my mom, it was like, I don't know that you can succeed at Vector. And there's no point that I ever like rubbed it in her face. I did take her on a trip to Italy, to Spain, and to Argentina, all of which, you know, she'd never been to Spain and Argentina. And I gave my dad a Rolex watch. These are all things that I got because of working with Vector. And at no point did I like rub it in their face like you were wrong, right? But it was a great feeling. I'll tell you that much. Okay. And you're going to think differently about yourself for the rest of your life. See, you all have moments in your life where you look back and you use that as like, that is who I am. Right? We all have moments where we fail miserably, right? Or really well. It depends on how you look at failure, right? Maybe you failed really well at something. I don't want that to be your frame of reference for who you are as a person. I want you to look at yourself as, hey, I'm a person who's courageous in my beliefs, has amazing follow through, and gets the job done. Like, that's how I want you to walk away from the push. I do things that scare the crap out of me, but I still get them done. Like that. Like think about how you feel about yourself at the end of the push when that happens. Maybe you've seen the movie Free Solo. If you haven't, I encourage you to watch it. That's El Capitan. It's a straight uphill climb. I think it's 1,400 feet. It's absurd. It's the equivalent of like climbing straight up a building, 1,400 feet. Alex Honnold, you can see in the photo down on the right, he climbed this mountain with no ropes. It's what's called free solo climbing. He climbed it, like my hands are sweating just thinking about it. I'm not exaggerating. Like my feet are a little tired right now just from standing. I've been standing here for less than 30 minutes. It took him like all day to climb this thing. One misstep and he falls to his death. One misstep and he falls to his death. You're not doing anything like that, but it feels kind of like that, right? I mean, no one has ever, by pushing, put themselves in harm's way, right? For you, you're going to sit on a Zoom screen for a bunch of hours a day. It's like, it's not nearly as bad, right? On a bad day, at Vector, a bunch of people don't buy Cutco. On a bad day for Alex, like in trying to do this, he like broke an arm, he broke the collarbone, he broke like a lot of bad things happen in the pursuit of that. And you know what he got paid to do that? Really nothing. I mean, he gets sponsorships and such, but like nobody paid him any dollars to climb that thing. Okay. What I'll tell you is if you do the push right, it's going to be the hardest thing you'll ever do. To this point. Let me say that again. What you're endeavoring to do, for a couple of you that were like, I'm not exactly sure why I'm here. You're actually, the reason you're here is we're trying to prepare you for the hardest thing you'll ever do. Just want that to sink in for a second. That's what you're signing up for. Now, usually when people hear something like that, they usually do one of three things, which all animals do: fight, flight, or freeze. Some of you are probably freezing. You're like, oh, geez. I don't know if maybe I shouldn't be doing this, right? Some of you are like ready to start running the other way. But I'm guessing there's a part of all of you that's like, man, I want to do this thing. I want to do it. I really want to make the most out of this. It's the hardest thing you'll ever do, and you'll never be the same person for it. You won't change. You're just going to reveal more of who you actually are and how amazing you are. And we both know that you're amazing, but you're still wondering whether you're actually amazing. And that's why life gives you opportunities to really kind of show how amazing you are to yourself and to the world. So what about working at Vector gives you the greatest sense of meaning or purpose and or fulfillment? Just take a minute just to jot that down. What gives you meaning while you're here? What gives you purpose? What's fulfilling? Maybe it is the competition. Maybe it's the skills that you're learning. Maybe it's just the thrill of trying to make a sale every time. Maybe it's all of the above. And then I want you to think about how are you going to evolve through the push? Are you going to become more disciplined? Right? Waking up earlier. Are you going to become like more of a morning person? Whenever I'm trying to do something big, I always screw around less. Best way of saying it. I always feel a lot more alive. When I'm trying to do something of significance, I always feel more alive. I definitely feel more like a leader. Like I'm utilizing the talents that I was given. With great power comes great responsibility. You've all heard that before. And be thinking about that. That's really what I encourage you to do. Can you see my screen this whole time or no? All right, go there. Here's some cool things, by the way. You sell 12.5, you get a t-shirt and you get a decal. Those decals you see on people's cars, you don't have to put on your car. You can put it wherever you want. Right? You can give it to someone if you want. Right? If you sell 15,000, you get a rock. It's pretty cool. It's like this crystal, like acrylic type rock. And I used to tell people like, you could put that, in my college, my first year, we had like a mantle, we had a fireplace. It was there's a lot of nice things at that college. I would imagine like putting it on the mantle and like, you're going to get a date from that. I used to tell that story. I was like, someone's going to ask you like, what is that thing? And then you're going to be able to be like, oh, that's when I sold $15,000. Right. I used to always tell that story. And this guy, Jared Prince, that actually happened to him. He's like, Mike, you'll never believe what happened. Because I had that rock sitting there. there was this really cute girl that I was really excited to meet. She walked over. She's like, what's that thing? And he's like, I sold $15,000. Right. And then she was like, what? And then he told the whole story. Right. And he's like, Mike, it actually got me a date. He's like, that story that you told actually happened. And I think it's really fun for you to know. I'm not saying it's going to happen for you, but I'm just saying it did happen. Right. So I want you to think about, who do you aspire to be in life? Think of some of the characteristics of who you aspire to be. Then I want you to write down, who are you today in relation to that? So maybe who you aspire to be is like, whatever. I'm gonna use, you want to be a leader, right? Who are you today? Maybe you're a leader, but like on a level of 1 to 10, you're like a 7. So if you want to write that, like, I'm this, but a lower version of this, right? Or a lesser version, right? And then when are you going to close this gap? Or you've all heard that saying, like, if not now, when? Right? To me, in my opinion, and my advice to you, as a guy who's a little bit older, who's been on this earth a longer time than you, do it now. Right? Make the most of it now, because if you could do that, it's going to leverage you for the rest of your life. The German philosopher Goethe said, at the moment of commitment, the universe conspires to assist you. That's what I found. Every time I've committed to something, things seem to flow easier. So I want you to think about, like, if I committed to something, what would I commit to? Is it a number of appointments? Is it a sales amount? Is it just the discipline of pushing all the way through? Here are the things that I'm going to encourage you to commit to. I want you to commit to having 200 names and numbers, and I'll help you with this later, by the time the push starts, which is July 11th is when you want to have it by the 11th, so you can make a bunch of phone calls that day. And these are people who know who you are. Don't just like grab a phone book of people that don't know who you are, right? And I'll walk you through this in a bit. I want you to commit to the schedule that I'm going to outline. It doesn't mean all day long demos. It means like commit to 5 a day. Commit to 5 a day. By the way, there's 15 days to sell. Okay, there's 2 all-day phone jams, maybe 3 all-day phone jams. Casey, can you count the days out for me? I always get it slightly off. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Plus 5 plus 4. What's 5 plus 4 plus 4? 9, 13. Yeah, 13, 14, 15. Yeah, there's about 15 selling days and like 3 phone days. Let me ask you a question. If you had 200 names and numbers and you phoned all day for 3 days, do you think you can line up 50 appointments? Right? So this is the part where it's like, it is science. This is not art. It's whoever does the first one usually makes the phone calls, and they usually get the 50 appointments, and then they usually hit their number that they want to hit. You want to make commitments every day, right? So you don't need to make like all the right decisions. You just need to consistently make good decisions. And I want you to commit to building the momentum now for the next 2 weeks. So you may be like, I don't have 200 names and numbers. That's fine. In 2 weeks, there have been wars that have been won in 2 weeks. Just know that. Like, we've mobilized, the military, moved them across, the earth, right? We've done major things. We've sent people to the moon, right? I think in 2 weeks, right? We can help you come up with 200 names and numbers, and we'll even start today. All right. This is what I want you to feel like. That's Alex Honley at the top of El Capitan. He tells the story he tells the story that he got to the top, climbed over, right? And he had no backpack or anything like that. So people kind of looked at him as if like, where did you come from? And they were kind of like, because he had no ropes and harnesses, they didn't think he actually climbed it. So they just thought he walked up the backside and hiked it. Right? It's kind of crazy. Right? So it was like one of the most impressive things ever done in the history of this earth. And nobody really celebrated at the top of the mountain with him. Okay. It's kind of funny. I'll celebrate with you.